presentations. All right, so this is the presentation, and hopefully everyone can see that. I'm also going to talk about what I coined as the Q2 miracle. And I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek with a lot of the things that I'm presenting here. I think one of the best skills an open source developer can have is a little bit of a sense of humor and a lot of patience. But let's get going. As many of the people know, we're just concluding the release activities for JDK 25. There is something that we do as a community, and certainly as the people working actively on the release, any release coming out of Adoptium, any Temurin release coming out of Adoptium, is we have a status issue so we can communicate with the public where we're at any given hour during a release period. And you can see here, based on that little screen grab, that there was this time around a lot of questions that came in from the community. So I'm calling this is like an informal community forum at this point. So I wanted to do this presentation to talk a little bit about or address some of the questions that came up, but also, what it's like to work at the project from a committer perspective, from a project lead perspective, and kind of what we're doing when we're not answering questions in these forums. And so I'm going to actually take content from that issue, questions that are added into that issue, and I'm going to put them into they are in as part of this presentation now. So the first one of the questions that stood out and kind of started the ball rolling of this forum was how are other distributors able to release their binaries on the same day while Temurin releases take several days to complete, and why is there this difference? So we're gonna look at that a little bit, and then of course there's interaction between people asking questions. Someone in this forum said, okay, well, let project committers chime in with an actual answer. Because if we know the problems, if those problems are public knowledge, you never know, someone might step in and help with the release, which is a great, that is definitely what we hope will happen. So we're looking at that. But before we get into it, I do want to explain a little bit about the way our project works. We have Adoptium, which is its own kind of top level project, and underneath it, a lot of sub-projects, including Temurin, the most well-known. That's what we produce. And there's a lot of repos and activity related to build and distribution of Temurin. But there is also an active test project called Aquavit, and a project that is focused on compliance testing called Temurin Compliance. And this is special. It's not an open project because in that project, they are using materials that are proprietary materials available via a legal agreement from Oracle. So that legal agreement is called an OCTLA, and it's between Oracle and the Eclipse Foundation. There's another legal agreement as well. I'll call it the three-way agreement between Oracle, Eclipse Foundation, and I have their insert name here, which is any individual or company that wants to join in the work in that project needs to sign that agreement. And so all three parties have to have a signature on that agreement. A couple other things of note, and it comes up in that community forum. Typically people with an OCTLA have, or I think, have early access to the technology compatibility kit, the TCK materials that are used to check that a binary is conforms to the Java specification. Temurin Compliance does not have early access. So this already puts us at a little bit of a disadvantage to other distributors in that we don't get to start the work within this project until the GA materials are available to us. And that's typically around the same time that the GA tag drops. So our starting point is later than other distributors' starting point. And I will say, we're also having some challenges, which I think we're overcoming quite nicely. There were some unexpected team changes that were announced at the start of Q2, and this is where a miracle, my term, comes in, that were to occur as of July 1st. And what this actually means is that a bunch of the people that were working in Temurin compliance, who were employed by Red Hat, and Red Hat has a three-way agreement with Oracle and Eclipse Foundation to participate. A bunch of those folks, including myself, were transferred to IBM. Now IBM has asked for a three-way agreement, but to date, only Eclipse Foundation and IBM have signed that. So there is a request out to Oracle to sign it. I'm not sure that that will proceed, and it's not really something we have visibility on. That's something between Oracle and IBM to work out. So just noting that the people who were normally working in this project no longer are able to work in this project. So there was a kind of a shift in the committers of Temurin compliance. Luckily, though, new committers have been onboarded into this project, and they're new to it. So they're still learning some of the things. They're doing a phenomenal job, given this is a brand new area for them to work in. But they are, as one should expect, they're in a learning mode, and they'll only be able to get better at delivering what needs to be delivered on this project. So if I was going to answer the question, why are we, why is Temurin a little bit delayed? I think it goes to these two bullet points from the perspective of the Temurin Compliance Project. But I do want to talk now a little bit about our release delivery map. So this is part of our program plan. The working group puts together a program plan every year. This one, I guess, is the 2025 one, but 2026 will look awfully similar. And this is what we intend to release out of the project during CPU releases, but of course, March and September are feature releases, so it's usually it is one version at that time. During our 4 CPU releases during the year, it's everything with green check marks. So that means we're trying to release 58 different products out of the project. And for each one of those, they must run, we intend to run all of the Aquavit suite plus all of the TCK testing. But I will also note that only 48 of these are head full. Okay, so we're going to look just now. I'm going to take one of these platforms and talk about what this looks like from my memory of being in Temurin compliance. And I believe I'm not sharing anything that I'm not allowed to share from a private project. This is just talking about the kind of workload that and how the work is kind of divided up. So within a given platform, in the compliance project, we have a lot of the test material that is automated. And we put that into a category called automated. There are some auto manuals. That category is really automated tests that don't run well, or maybe need a little extra assistance, like firewall needs to be lifted for the running of a test case, or this kind of thing. So they don't go into the automated bucket. They get run kind of separately so that things run a little smoother, and we don't have to be always triaging so heavy on the automated pipelines. And then there's another category called interactives, which is manual testing. And I have a before Arctic and after Arctic. So I have to step back and say kudos and thanks to the Amazon team who over the past 2 years had been working on, or probably even before that, working on a test framework that would allow these interactive tests to be automated. In fact, allow any GUI-based tests to be automated. So we will use these on public GUI tests as well. But it took them a while to be able to get this to be open sourced. And luckily, this timing of the open sourcing of Arctic happened at the same time that we learned that we were likely, a lot of the people that were working in Temurin compliance were likely not going to be able to continue to work. So at the beginning of Q2, these two events happened, and we decided we were going to try to do something that was going to be very hard, which is within that short space of time, try to automate a large set of those interactives. So you can kind of see what that means from a time perspective. Before Arctic, that meant that for each one of those platforms in the program plan, it was 4 to 6 hours to complete the interactive set per, which means, at best case, 288 human person hours to complete just that part of the work. After we pulled off this Q2 miracle, and it's really not quite done yet, but we managed to get a certain way done. The estimate is that it's about an hour, for an experienced person, about an hour to complete what remains. So the interactive, the workload related to running interactives has decreased now. And I'm calculating this on a CPU release, not on a feature release, which would be a little bit smaller. Okay. So we also did some other automation because we wanted to be able to support the people who were now going to be brand new and working inside of Temurin compliance. So we added some additional things that made it possible to see what we're allowed to see out of the Temurin compliance project, which is the status of the test job. No details about the proprietary test material, but being able to see pass, fail, or unstable, and unstable meaning something failed, but we don't know what. This alone would help us because if it was a pass, this is a good thing. We could just proceed with checking off that check mark in the status issue and saying, okay, TCK is, the automated part of TCK is complete. All we need to do now is communicate or hear from the Temurin compliance committers to hear that the smaller set, the after Arctic set of interactives is also completed. We also added new launching capabilities. So even though a bunch of people can't work in that project at the moment, if something was unstable or failed, and we have Temurin compliance committers in different time zones. If they were asleep, which we do encourage people to sleep, other people would be able to relaunch things that showed as unstable or failed without actually being in the project. Because we do remotely trigger from our build pipelines, the automated pipelines on the private server. So we are able to do that. Even if it fails, we can relaunch just the tests and not the build again, which saves some time as well. So in that summary of Q2 features that was delivered in that short space of time between the time we heard human changes, the committer role would be radically changed as of July 1st. We were able to turn on the automatic reruns. So even without human intervention, if something was unstable, it would rerun just the failed test cases. We were able to stabilize many of the auto manuals and reduce that set to almost nothing. So again, removing humans from the picture so that more things are moved into the automated bucket. Having that blind reach in to be able to see the job status. remotely triggering jobs from a public test pipeline so that, you know, if someone was asleep or, you know, in a different time zone, we could assist from outside the project. And then, of course, the large amount of work that went into making the recordings for the Arctic recordings for automation of those interactives. And if you join the Temurin Compliance Project, you can see the very large epic under that private repo issue and how far we got with it. I'm coming back to our conversation now, and just to say that I'm so thrilled that people who were talking in the status issue of September knew about our scorecards and actually went to look at some of the notes that I put into those scorecards. I honestly didn't think anyone really looked at those, so it was really fun to see that people are reading those. And this relates to, if you don't know what a scorecard is, it's part of our measuring how we did so that we can improve for next time. So noting that already we're saying, okay, we've had a change of personnel in Temurin Compliance. They're brand new as of the July release. So we see that there's a little bit of a slowdown in our release abilities or our speed, which is fine. I fully expect that as we onboard new folks. But all of this is happening in a way that most of the consumers, the millions of people who download Temurin from our website, you have no idea of this story that I'm telling you, I assume. So I guess I've highlighted in the middle of that one comment, someone had said, this makes me wonder if Temurin has a future. So I've crossed out the this makes me wonder, and just I want to highlight Temurin has a future. It is very broadly downloaded. I think it's probably the second most popular distribution of OpenJDK. But I do want to make the note that the working group members, the companies that are supporting us by joining the working group and bringing people to the project, they are invested. And one way to know that are things like, an example would be, recently we have announced that JDK 8 support is now extended to December 2030. So Temurin does have a future, but we do have to continue how we operate in this project, which is retrospectively looking at changes and seeing how we can address them and how we can be better. But just to note that people are looking, yes, what has happened is we've automated more, we've reduced the amount of manual time, but at the time that we did July and September, we still haven't fully onboarded all of the people that can be active in the Temurin Compliance Project. So it is a reduction, and it is new people learning. So I feel like we have a good story going forward with it, and that things will become better and smoother, and there is more automation that can happen. For people who don't know what a release looks like at Adoptium, I kind of drew this diagram quite a few years ago because I needed a way to step back and look at it from a high level. I call these swim lanes, and most of the people downloading Temurin would care about the first 3 swim lanes. We produce tarballs, so that the JDK production. We then also produce installers, Linux, Homebrew, Windows MSIs. We also produce Docker images, and for those who are aware, once we produce the tarballs, the containers that actually get produced, the final kind of push that lets them be available out of Docker happens from the Docker side, because we're based off of official images there, and it's kind of the final step. So if you have ever commented about why am I still waiting for this? One, they want all of our platforms to be done at the same time before making those available. So just because we have our primary platforms done doesn't mean we can produce the Docker images yet. But so that's kind of a little bit outside the control of the committers in Adoptium. But look at all these other swim lanes. So communications, and thanks to Jesse and Noah and other people, Xavier at the project who work on website issues, we've had people helping us automate the release notes. There's quite a lot of stuff that happens in that swim lane that we need help with. So again, it's not related to necessarily needing to sign a 3-way agreement so that you can join the Temurin Compliance Project and help with that TCK swim lane. There's a lot of places that people can help us. And then finally, I think one of the important ones here is the assessment swim lane. And that's where we look at scorecards and we do retrospectives, and we do them after each release to see if there are things that we can improve. But of course, as we move forward, we've added swim lanes. So there's an entire secure dev swim lane now at the project. I don't have time to talk about the activities in that swim lane at all in this talk, but just to say that we've achieved SLSA build level 3 for our primaries and most of our Temurin binaries, which is impressive. We also have reproducible builds, which is probably going to go into a SLSA build level 4. So what this means is we take secure development seriously at this project. We know that millions of people download and use things that we produce out of this project, so we want them to be secure. And so we're doing everything in our power with the time we have to make sure that we're using best practices here. So if you're interested in that, there's ways you can get involved as well. But I do want to say, because of that comment about makes me wonder if there's a future, I wanted to reference this kind of fun mnemonic, which is a crisis exists, because we're talking about sustainment. And I want to end with talking about our Sustainer program. And so this is actually, a mnemonic is just a way to remember necessary principles or remember things. And I want to have us think about the necessary sustainment principles we need in our open source project. And now this has a military origin. So I'm not saying producing Temurin images and running aquavit testing and all of this stuff is like being in a war, but okay, I'll still use the mnemonic. Each of those first letters stands for something we want to be able to do or do well at the project. Anticipation, we want to be able to foresee operational requirements and initiate actions ahead of it being, ahead of being asked. So I'm going to talk about some examples. I'll review them at the end, but an example of this would be us initiating achieving a SLSA build level 3. So making sure it was more than 3 years ago where we began the work, because we know that we need to continue to have secure development practices, because we anticipate in this world where lots of hackers and bad actors are around looking for ways to take advantage of others, that we need to fortify defenses there. Continuity. So this is like a battle rhythm. This is being able to deliver the right services and supplies and things on time, and just being able to continue. So have we ever missed delivering maybe a platform we have, but in terms of delivering on time within our targets, mostly we're improving that story, and mostly we have a battle rhythm here at the project. Responsiveness. So as requirements change, can we react? Can we continue to maintain support? And I think the Q2 miracle there is a good example. We responded to changes or news that things were going to change, and we're able to continue delivering, even though there is some delays at the moment while we get used to the new story. The teams responded very well. Integration. This is kind of, let's look at how we collaborate with other organizations and projects to share solutions, to share infrastructure and expertise. We do this quite well, and we have in our program plan ways that we're going to push this a little more. Simplicity. So this is, how do we have clear operating procedures and roles and tasks? This is really around our releases. I could use an example where we do have a release champion role, and now we've added a compliance lead role so that everyone knows their places, everyone knows where they're going to be working at a particular time, so that we can, if someone is no longer available, other people can step in, and we have that continuity because we have clear ways of proceeding through our activities. Improvisation. So you could argue that if you're really good at anticipating everything, you don't even need to know how to improvise. But of course, there's always going to be stuff that surprises you. So this is the ability to adapt and create solutions out of what you have. And our team does that very, very well. And when I say our team, I mean the committers at Adoptium and the contributors at Adoptium. Survivability. So this is the idea that you can withstand hostile actions or environmental conditions and still fulfill your primary mission. So really, it's reducing disruptions. An example in the status issue was why was the AR64 Linux platform, why did it take so long? Because normally it's a primary platform, it's out fast for us. Well, we actually lost machines at that time. So new machines had to be set up, and there were some infrastructure kind of, I will say issues that delayed the delivery for the September release. But being able to withstand changes and being able to react to things is part of that. And finally, economy. So an efficient operation. Normally, how this would work would be a project would have the flexibility to not be so efficient at the beginning of some initiatives, to learn and prototype and be able to actually just get something functional and then figure out how to do it more efficiently. And that's part of our retrospective work. Okay, we do this thing now. How do we do it better and more efficiently? How do we reduce our costs and reduce our need for certain types of resources? So again, I've mentioned some of those things. Sustainment in action. Those principles in action at our project are the Q2 miracle, which I have kind of described. The ramping up of secure development activities so putting that as a priority for our project and doing that starting years ago, ahead of when other open source projects have even been looking at those things. So I would say we take it seriously and it matters to our project. And I'm glad we anticipated that so early on. Another example of sustainment in action, having Aquavit, some standardizing stuff, having an extensible QA approach, quality assurance approach. This is one of those things that make continuity and make projects a little easier to maintain. Collaborating with other organizations. So we have been working with the Amazon team, and they had asked us to also share our learnings of Arctic, how to use the framework with other teams, and we're happy to do that. We met some folks from SAP around this as well. So share the knowledge, share the expertise, because that comes back in good ways to the project. roles and checklists. So I talked about that. We have retrospectives and this notion of continuously improving, and then shifting towards, if one example of the economy thing, shifting towards more dynamic resources, so we have the resources when we need them and don't pay for them when we're not using them. So what can support look like here? I've talked about that loss of a major cloud provider. If you're asking for how you can support the project, yeah, dollars do help, because dollars can buy us infrastructure or access to infrastructure. It obviously won't help get us more, well, I shouldn't say that. It doesn't directly help us have people sign the three-way agreement to join the Temurin Compliance Project, but it might help add a full-time person working for the Adoptium working group to join that as their, main mission. The talk here about the build server, I love this comment, and I just wanted to put it there. Thanks to whoever put it. The things don't run faster by looking at automated builds. That's true. We do take a couple extra days to deliver in the cases where we don't have access to early access material. But this part here, that's exactly what I want to leave the talk with. Contribute your time to some of those swim lanes. Donating helps too, because we can then fund new initiatives and support existing initiatives better. So what does the Sustainer program, in my opinion, look like from my perspective as a committer? Well, so a crisis exists. We're not in crisis, but we are missing out on some opportunities. So having additional Sustainer donations, dollars, sponsorship, whatever you want to call it, will help us achieve some additional opportunities in our program plan. Supporting the project, even nominally, really helps us anticipate, continue timely delivery, respond, integrate, all of these principles that are around that sustainment goal. It helps us uplift and support new initiatives. It is frankly a morale booster for committers. Oh, people want to support us. That's fantastic. And if you do, we learn about how you're using the stuff we produce, and that helps us potentially support you better. So the ask here is to join us in any of those swim lanes, and even the one that you need to sign a legal agreement if you're willing. But help is needed in all of those swim lanes, not because we can't continue or because there's a crisis, but because we know that there are opportunities to be even better. So that's the end, and I